The floor is yours.
Thank you, Illich. And actually the title of this lecture in Dutch was Religion is a Verb, but we thought it would translate maybe even better in English as Religion is a Workout, and we will explain why during this lecture. So of course in the first lecture we explained that an important universal meaning is hidden in the origin of the word religion. Religion, derived from the Latin relegere, means to reconnect. That means we connect with something we have already been connected before. And we discussed that this interconnectedness is rooted in the idea of the unity of all life. We emerge from this unity, we return to it, and in essence we are that unity. We are therefore connected to it even now, in this very moment, and we always will be in the future. But do we actually realize this? This is the first meaning of religion, to become aware of this again. Re-becoming aware of the one life that we essentially are, and consciously reconnecting with it. But there is a second meaning, and this second meaning has everything to do with how we can realize this awareness. Because how do we do that? How do we put this into practice? And that's the topic of this lecture. We will return to that second meaning of the word religion in a moment. In the first lecture, we presented a view of the one life. That one life is ever present, everywhere, and is in essence boundless. That means that consciously becoming one again with that one life is a continuous process that goes on endlessly. It is an ever-growing and deepening understanding of the unity, identifying with it more and more. A realization of being one with another, with your family, your relatives, your country, humanity as a whole, with this planet, with all living beings, with the universe, etc. But this does not happen automatically. It can only happen by consciously putting effort in it, consciously choosing for it and acting accordingly. This requires the necessary self-efficacy and discipline. It is not any different than achieving mastery in any other discipline. Mastery can only be achieved through intensive, persistent and incessant training. Take for example a world-class musician, or a top-notch researcher, a true craftsman, or a professional high-performance athlete. How many hours do they dedicate to their profession? Just consider the things they have to give up to achieve perfection in their music, in their discipline or sport. Even when relaxing or carrying out their daily duties, their ideal is always in the back of their mind, like an active meditation. So if this holds so evidently true for physical, mental, cultural or artistic disciplines, why should it be any different in the case of spirituality? And all the more so because work in the spiritual field is universal. It applies to every discipline of life and at the same time transcends them all. It is about the greater whole, about the one life as a whole. In other words, if you take religion seriously, in the sense of becoming aware of the unity that we essentially are, then that also requires deliberate choices. Not just on special occasions throughout the year, or on a particular day in the week, or just a few times during the day. It requires continuous discipline, practice, training, patience, perseverance, but above all, a sustained mental attitude 24/7. a mental attitude characterized by wisdom and compassion, and that at the same time offers peace, joy, and the highest fulfillment. Religion is peak performance, like the highest quality of art, craftsmanship, top-notch research, or world-class sport. This is what the second meaning of religion is all about. Let's look again at the other etymological derivation of the word religion that points to this meaning. The Roman philosopher and statesman Cicero speaks of a derivation coming from the Latin word relegere, meaning to read again or put into practice. He connects it with, for example, the word elegant, which means choosing or good selection, or the word intelligent, which implies understanding and discernment. All these words share the same root lex, which means law. And this doesn't mean just any law, but the laws of nature. These laws of nature are theosophically the habit patterns of the spiritual side of nature. They are spiritual or divine habits. So according to this derivation of the word, religion means choosing or selecting higher spiritual habits to follow. And if we start from boundlessness as the first principle, then we do not have to seek those higher spiritual habits outside of ourselves. For we are essentially that oneness. We are not separate from the boundless. Just as everything that lives is not separate from the boundless, and therefore also not separate from ourselves either. But when it comes to a choice within ourselves, who exactly is then choosing, and what is there to choose between? As told in the first lecture, as human beings we often stand at a crossroads between two parts in ourselves. Our outer part instinctively reacts from its own personal self, out of fear or other emotions, out of restlessness, our own desires, our self-preservation or self-interest. When we identify with this, we actually imagine ourselves separate from the oneness that we really are. However, in our inner part, which we also called the spiritual soul in the first lecture, we are one with everything. And when we listen to our inner part, through our conscience or our intuition, we also act according to the interconnectedness, the coherence, the unity of all life. As human beings, we are learning to make our inner part the guiding force over our outer part. And that doesn't mean that we need to oppose or fight again or chastise that outer part, as it sometimes is portrayed. We need our outer part to be active and significant in the world. We just need to properly direct it and to ennoble it. And as human beings, that all begins with directing our thoughts. For as thinkers, we consciously or unconsciously are choosing our thoughts. We can better direct ourselves and our lives if we become more aware of the thoughts we think, and if we encourage those that are in line with the unity of life and forget all the other ones slowly but surely. You could say religion is the conscious effort to think based on unity within oneself, from which follows action based on unity in the world. That means that when we talk about religion, about the awareness of unity in practice, we are actually combining two directions. The inward direction, achieving inner enlightenment, and the outward direction, passing on this light to others. It is like lighting other candles with your own flame. These are two directions that are in fact one. For the inner direction, the emphasis is on connecting through wisdom, and for the outer direction, the emphasis on connecting through compassion. But actually the former can just as well be called outer and the latter inner. And also wisdom and compassion can hardly be separated, so forget about the words and hopefully the meaning will become clear. Our starting point is that we are essentially the one life, that oneness, that one boundless reality. Now wisdom can be defined as knowing truth, because following what is not true cannot be wise. Therefore, if reality consists essentially of the one life, then wisdom is our vision of that one life. Now how and where do we find wisdom? First, if you examine all the great religious traditions worldwide, you will see that they all originate from one and the same wisdom. And also, the teachers who were at the origin of these traditions always point to the one and same wisdom. It was one of the main tasks of H.P. Blavatsky to make that common source of wisdom of all the great traditions known to the world. And her book, The Secret Doctrine, is full of examples demonstrating this. However, when it comes to knowing truth, research into the ancient religious traditions is only a stepping stone. The point is to find that wisdom within yourself. And then religion, actively connecting with the unity of life, is only one of the three views of reality. Because if wisdom equals knowing truth, then we can activate and deploy two other inner faculties in addition to the religious awareness of oneness. Consider seeing coherence, developing universal insight, understanding and intuition. This is rather the domain of philosophy. And in addition, we also have our logic, the ability to analyze, organize our thoughts and reason, the domain of science. If the development of wisdom is essentially about truth-seeking, so why not use all our faculties to form a vision of the unity of life? True religion, therefore, cannot be separated from philosophy and from science. And true philosophy and true science cannot be separated from religion either. There can be only one all-encompassing reality, or truth, and then it must be explainable in religious as well as philosophical and scientific terms. True wisdom then satisfies not only our innermost ethical sense of oneness, but also our most universal understanding or insight, and furthermore is logical and consistent with the facts as we know them, also from science. Finally, an important statement about the development of wisdom by H.P. Blavatsky from her booklet The Voice of Silence. She writes there about the development of the knowledge of self with a capital S. This higher self is expressed through the same higher powers of thinking, our sense of unity, our insight or intuition, and our intellect. So this self-knowledge is equivalent to wisdom. And she writes, self-knowledge is of loving deeds the child. In other words, we only become wise when we start living for others and see now immediately the connection between wisdom and compassion. Because you may so far be thinking that it is all somewhat theoretical. Searching for truth, bringing together religion, philosophy and science, searching for what is ethical, universal and logical, etc. But of course, wisdom that you do not practically apply isn't true wisdom, but merely book wisdom. And this is where both directions come together, where you see that they are actually one and the same. Because to be wise is to act wisely. And to act wisely to act from a sense of oneness, is to be compassionate. Because when you recognize that everything is essentially one, then you are also acting accordingly. You realize more and more that you are the other and do for the other exactly what you would do for yourself. Allow us to dwell a bit more on this concept of compassion, because people often confuse it with pity. To begin with, when you build up an understanding of how you experience something yourself, you're also better able to help others. Because suffering has two meanings: to suffer something or to endure something. You can suffer by passively undergoing something and being sad about it, but you can also suffer by bearing, by tolerating or enduring something with your head up high. In the first case, you see yourself more or less as a victim of circumstance. You then actually suffer from identification with your outer, your transitory part. You identify with your body, for instance, that may be in pain, or with your feelings that have been hurt, or your personality that has taken a hit. But deep inside, you will realize that all these things are only temporary and will not really help you move forward. Because you can also bear or endure something from the wisdom or inner knowledge that there is a meaning in everything that you experience or face in life. A lesson you can learn, provided you are open to it. Actually, there is no longer any suffering at that point. You are then capable of viewing a situation from an inner, unselfish and above personal motive, knowing that it has meaning, that there is an educational lesson in it, that it is a consequence of a once self-created cause, a disharmony that had to be restored. You do not suffer then, but take control and lead the situation. And because you do not lose yourself in emotions, but can respond from calmness, from insight and wisdom, you can also help others in this process and offer solutions to achieve harmony. You recognize the suffering of others as if it were your own. And because you can see through the suffering in yourself, you can also help others see through it. And it also immediately shows why wisdom helps us to be more compassionate. Because if we do not have the wisdom to recognize and express the inner part in ourselves, then we cannot help others with it either. So religion is a parallel process of the more inner connection with the wisdom in ourselves and the outer connection through compassion with the world around us. And these two reinforce each other. Inner exercise, outer practice. Like as a world-class musician or professional athlete, you can only play or achieve something after a lot of exercise or workout. And once you have reached a certain level, you will also have to prove yourself more and more in practice, in all kinds of concerts or tournaments. Except that religion is not just about one moment or one particular discipline or field, and you are continuously practicing your inner wisdom in every aspect of your life, in every moment. You are continuously practicing your compassionate attitude towards everyone. And this union of the inner with the outer is something that can also be found in all the great wisdom traditions. For example, in the invocation from Socrates, "O Father Zeus, lead me so to live that the outer man on earth and the inner man may be at one." Or in the statement of Jesus the Nazarene, "Love your God above all else, and equal to this, love your neighbor as yourself." And as you understand it by now, in both cases it is not about a God outside yourself, but the inner God within ourselves. And this is also consistent with the self-efficacy that true religion requires of us. it is the self-efficacy that spiritual teachers from east to west have been pointing us to. Like the Buddha's last words, saying, all component things in the world are changeable, they are not lasting, work out your own salvation with diligence. Or the words of Jesus, take the kingdom of heaven, which is within you, by force. And Plato writes that learning equals recollection, awakening what is already in our souls. We cannot receive any favors from outside. We can only become aware of our oneness with everything if we also consciously engage in this sense of oneness in our own thinking and action. Religion is a workout. You could say that religion is to manifest your self-accumulated wisdom, your vision of oneness, in a sustainable way in yourself and through your compassionate actions in the world. Now, is this focus we place on conscious choice, hard work, the comparison to craftsmanship, professional sports, top-notch research, or world-class music, is it justified when religion should, after all, also lead to harmony, to peace, and to calm? This contradiction is only seeming. It is precisely the paradox that the Chinese sage Lao Tzu also cites in his Tao Te Ching. He says the sage does nothing, but leaves nothing undone. And this doing nothing does not mean that the sage does not act at all, but that he knows how to do exactly what is needed at the moment, and that he does not value the result of those actions. Moreover, he acts calmly and peacefully because it is the most natural thing for him to do, even though it may involve something that others would find hard, complicated, or stressful. It is the peace of action that results from connecting through wisdom and through compassion, when the outer is guided by the inner man. And the outer man, acting from inner sense of unity, is then so completely in harmony that it is totally unnoticeable. For example, a good tightrope walker appears reasonably calm and peaceful walking on the rope between two skyscrapers, but of course this outer calm and peace is the result of sustained inner practice and concentration. Peace, then, requires continuous activity of both our thinking and acting. It comes from active compassion, from actively applied wisdom. Finally, with all the emphasis on self-efficacy, one might wonder if religion is primarily an individual matter. This too is a paradox. Individual work is precisely what is needed to contribute better to the world. And the better you will act as an individual, based on a sense of unity, the stronger also will be the collective that you will gather around you. Because also spiritual work naturally goes much better when you work together. And you can imagine that when compassion is central to a group of people, it produces an enormous inspiring interaction. From the shared ideal, you will help each other to independently become a compassionate and wise force in the world. And with good cooperation also comes a natural division of labor, in which the one who is best suited is also given the responsibility to help oversee the whole, to help to slow down or to speed up, and to adjust where necessary. Such a leader knows that wisdom does not come from outside, but also develops from within. Hence, such a leader never dictates or imposes, but always inspires. And when working well together, the individual soldier also needs few orders. Each goes about his work self-actively out of compassion and a sense of unity. And this, in turn, will attract even more others, who independently want to make wisdom and compassion more central in their lives. And is this not the work that is most and desperately needed? For how different would the world not be if people actively worked to connect through wisdom, compassion and peace? And isn't that what the religion of the future should be? I thank you for your attention.